What is up, guys? Happy Friday. I hope your week is going well and that you have some fun things lined up for this weekend. Today we are continuing our devotional journey through the book of Daniel, and we're kicking into one of my favorite parts of Daniel, and that's Daniel chapter 7. Now, you may have heard me say from time to time at youth that I love talking about and studying eschatology, or the end times, which typically when we talk about the end times, we're referring to the book of Revelation, which is the book of the end times. But in order to understand the book of Revelation, we have to understand the book of Daniel. And what Daniel's about to talk about for the next couple of devotionals is directly tying into end time prophecy. And so we're kicking off today with Daniel chapter 7. And as we dive into this chapter, Daniel says that this is in the year of King Belshazzar of Babylon. And so actually we're going back in time from yesterday's devotional. Yesterday's devotional took place under King Darius of Persia, who had taken over after King Belshazzar was killed the night that he saw the handwriting on the wall. This is taking place before all of that. King Belshazzar is still king of Babylon. Daniel's there. At this point, because of when Belshazzar took over in Babylon, he's going to be about 50 to 60 years old, so he's a little bit older. And he says that he has this vision one night while he is laying there. And in this vision, he kind of lists out some pretty crazy things that he's seen, and we'll kind of walk through real quickly. But he says specifically that he sees 4 beasts coming out of the sea. Now, the sea was kind of symbolic. It just kind of meant the world. That in Jewish culture and literature, they consider the Great Sea just to be this massive expanse of the world. And so he's seeing these 4 beasts kind of come out of the world. And what he's seeing, he says the first one was like a lion but had eagle's wings. And the lion was a symbol for Babylon. He says, I continue watching, the wings were torn off, it was lifted up from the ground, set on its feet like a man, and given a human mind. And if you remember our devotional from a couple days ago, King Nebuchadnezzar had this experience where he was king of Babylon, and he ruled over Babylon, and all of a sudden, because of his pride, God kind of removed the kingdom from him and sent him out into the wilderness, and he lost his mind. After a period of time, however, he acknowledged God, and God gave him his sanity and his kingdom back. And so we're seeing Babylon right here, this lion with eagle's wings, meaning it's very fast, it's very powerful, is taken, the wings are removed, it's stood up to be like a man, and it's given a sane human mind. And so we see a picture here of Babylon as this first beast. Suddenly, Daniel says another beast, a second one that looked like a bear. Now, a bear was typically the symbol for Syria. Syria was known for having these massive brown bears. It was raised up on one side as it was about to attack him. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, showing that it was constantly consuming and hungry. And so we're seeing the Syrian Empire here Daniel's talking about. And after this, a third one came. It was like a leopard with 4 wings, so it was fierce and it was incredibly fast, conquering the world very, very quickly, and it had 4 heads. Now, more than likely, scholars believe that the 4 heads mean that it was looking in all directions. This was a kingdom or a king, because it's important to know all these beasts represent kingdoms and kings. This beast was looking everywhere over the earth and spreading everywhere. Its 4 heads looked in every direction, and it was given dominion. And then after this, while I was watching the night vision, suddenly a 4th beast appeared. And Daniel doesn't say what this one looks like. He just says it was frightening and dreadful, incredibly strong, with large iron teeth, which could have been playing back to the statue from a few days ago. And we remember that iron had to do with Rome. But he sees this 4th beast. It devoured and crushed and trampled whatever was left in the world. So it's conquering everything that's left after the other empires. And it was different from all the beasts before it and had 10 horns. And so Daniel goes on, he describes these, and then he gets this. He says, I kept watching, and thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. Now, the Ancient of Days was another title given to God. It was a way for them to describe who God was. He was the Ancient of Days. He's always existed. And so Daniel's looking at this vision. He sees that the Ancient of Days is taking his seat on a throne and looking out over everything. And he describes him for a while. And then at the very end of verse 10, he says, the court was opened as the Ancient of Days, God is sitting there, and the books were opened. And so we see that there is going to be some kind of an account being held here, a court scene where books are open and witnesses are giving testimony to what has happened. And so we're seeing this picture of the end times. And Daniel goes on, he talks about, and he says he's watching the beast, and the beast was killed, its body destroyed and given over to fire. He says, as I continue watching, verse 13, suddenly one like a son of man was coming with the clouds of heaven. I'll let you guess who that might be. And he was escorted to the Ancient of Days, so he's being escorted to God. And this Son of Man was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, so that those of every people, nation, and language should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. And so this passage is kind of heavy, and we see in this Daniel is literally overwhelmed and afraid because of what he's seeing with these these beasts, which represent these kingdoms and these rulers. And in our world, we see a lot of terrible rulers on a small scale level with bosses and authority, on a grand scale level of rulers of nations. But what we ultimately see in this vision right here is that Jesus, who is this Son of Man that he's seeing, is coming, and he is the one that no matter what these other nations and beasts and kingdoms do, he is the one that's given dominion over the world for all time. It will never be taken away. There will never be another beast that can rise up and steal it from Jesus' grasp. And that's the hope we have in this. When we look at end time prophecy, a lot of times it's easy to get dragged into how terrible things can be and the symbolism behind it and be overwhelmed. Man, that's going to be terrible. But what we have to ultimately focus on, what Daniel comes to right here, is looking at how Christ comes on top of all of this. There will never be another kingdom, another power that is more powerful than Christ. He is the one that God gives rule over everything to. And so I hope that's encouraging to you. I know that right now in our world, with the way things are going, especially with coronavirus, it's tempting to look and see how crazy and terrible and upside down everything is. And it is bad right now. But in the midst of that, we can begin to become very hopeless, thinking there's no end to this. Like, there's no purpose to living. There's no purpose to this life. It's just evil. There's just evil people trying to do bad things, and the world is conspiring against us. But what we have to remember as Christians, where we get our hope, is that Jesus is ultimately the one who will sit over this world. This is not the end. There's still more to come. Jesus is sitting on his throne and will rule over everything one day. And so I hope that's encouraging to you, looking towards that the battles are already won. We're just waiting for the final coming when Jesus says, all right, we're done. And that is coming, guys. And it's going to be such a beautiful day. So I hope you guys are encouraged by this. I hope your week's been going well. High schoolers, I had a blast with you guys last night. Feel free to message or comment below. Reach out to us this weekend. Tell us how you're doing, how we can be in prayer for you. I love you guys, and I can't wait to see you soon. I'll talk to you later.